You look a lot bigger than I am, like a giant compared to me.
Height-wise, I mean, I'm always gonna look like a giant compared to you.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything we can do about that. Do I have anything in my teeth?
No, you're good.
Okay. Hello, Classic Crew, and welcome to today's video, where we're going to be doing a question. Hold on, I have to think of it. Ask my mom anything. Hello, Classic Crew, and welcome to today's video, where we're going to be doing a video where
you're invited to ask my mom anything.
Hello, Classic Crew, and welcome to today's video, where we're going to be doing a video talking about asking my mom anything.
No.
Hello, Classic Crew, and welcome to today's video, where we're going to be doing an Ask My Mom Anything. So I asked you guys on Instagram to submit your questions for my mom about anything. She actually hasn't seen the questions yet, but she was visiting for my baby shower, and also you helped me unpack the house. And so I figured while she was here, why not take advantage of the situation and have you guys, my subscribers, ask her some questions. So are you ready? We have so many questions to go through, so we're not going to get through all of them, but thank you guys so much for submitting questions. And let's see what you guys had to ask. So let's start from here. So the first question is, I would love so much advice on how to balance having to work and still being a classic woman.
I think you just always have to keep your family first.
Yes.
So no matter what, no matter how important that job is, that day is, you need to make sure that your kids always know that they're first, that they come first. If something happens, you can, if you can't be there, you can call on your husband, you can call on a grandma, you can call on a grandpa, that somebody will be there, and they always know that they come first. Mm-hmm. And once they know that, and once you know that, then everything else flows from there.
Yeah. I think that's a really, obviously I'm not a mom yet, so I'm trying to do this balance just as a wife and as, a working person. But I think that's exactly right. And I talk about this a lot on my channel, which I learned from you, is just that traditional values, classic living, the stuff I talk about on here, it's all about putting your priorities in order.
I think it's also important because we're religious Jews, we have the Sabbath. There was always one day where I wouldn't be working. Mm-hmm. Usually it was two, but there were times I did have to work Sundays, but they always knew that on Saturdays there was one day when it was a family day and I wouldn't be working, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, and for Christians that can be Sunday.
Right.
How do you know when it's the right time to have kids? And you waited.
I did wait. You always are fearful
Yes.
about having kids, no matter when. So I'm not sure you ever feel like, okay, now's the right time. And sometimes if you get to that point where you feel like you have to wait for that it's going to be the right time, then you've waited too long.
That's true too.
So I think you need to just kind of take a leap of faith. You certainly know when it's not the right time. Mm-hmm. So it's not the right time before you're married, before you have a strong relationship with your husband,
right.
Before you both are on the same page. But once all that happens, I think any time is a good time, as long as you and your husband are both on the same page about it.
Yeah. I think, when Jacob and I got married, he was ready to have kids right away. I was the one who was like, let's take a beat. But I'm so glad we did wait for a few reasons. One being our relationship, I feel like, is so strong going into parenthood that we really, I trust him so much as the father of my child that we can work through things and make sure everything works out, as opposed to if you're getting pregnant immediately after marriage, it can be difficult to navigate kind of the adjustment of marriage itself with being pregnant and hormonal and feeling sick. I'm glad we had a little bit of time to grow our relationship before diving into that. And then also, for us, we also decided to wait until we were just a little more settled our finances and with where we were in life, so that it didn't feel like we were kind of in chaos throughout everything.
I would say too that if you're marrying young, if you're getting married when you're 21, 22, 23, even 25 or 26, I would say that I would wait a couple years to establish you and your husband as a couple, as a family, work through some of the problems that always arise for newlyweds, and really establish a strong relationship before you dive into parenthood.
Okay, so I just had to adjust some settings on the camera, so that was just a brief pause for us. No pause for you, but now let's get into the next question. So, finding motivation after a long, hard day, taking care of meals, family, faith study.
My mom always said that if you're going to work, even if you're working in the house, you just make sure that you have enough help. That, she always said the dishes don't care who washes them, and the floor doesn't care who scrubs it, but the kids care who reads them the story. So just make sure that if you need help, you get help.
And that can be, in your community, from your family. And if you can afford it and you're not close to any of that, maybe somebody who you hire to help you.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes we all go to a place of like, oh, if you need help, it needs to be paid help. And I don't think that that's at all necessary. I mean, it's a lovely thing to be close to family because then family can help you. It's a lovely thing to be part of a faith community or even just a community that you trust because they can help you.
Right. So, I mean, so it is nice to, to study, to do Bible study once a week and really have that set up. But you have to treat it as something that's really important.
Yeah.
That it's not just, oh, well, I'll do this if I have a moment. No, this is something that's important to you and you set up, and you'll always be glad that you did it.
That's true too.
So making sure that you schedule things that are important to you and that you do them, whether it's during the day, or whether it's in the evening. But I'm a big believer that that couple time is really important.
Totally.
And so, that really the time after your husband gets home from work or you get home from work is really couple time, whether you go for a walk, but just quiet time after the kids go to bed, that you always need to maintain yourself as a couple outside of the children and not forget that.
Yeah, that's something that I've been reading a lot about. I learned from you guys is just this idea that like the stability that your children feel is not just you as parent to that child showing them that you love them. It's the stability that they see between you and your spouse.
Yes.
And so you have to show that you guys are strong and will be there for them as a couple together.
And that you're happy together.
Yeah. Yeah. On a scale from 1 to 10, how excited are you for Abby's baby boy to be born?
11.
How does it feel knowing that you've raised your children to be so successful? I'm asking this question that someone else asked. I'm not going to call myself successful.
I don't really think about that so much. I think that I'm happy that they're good people and that they're really fighting and helping other people fight for good values and to be the best that everybody can be, and really fighting for traditional values across the board. And whether that, one of my daughters is a teacher and one is an artist, and whether they're doing that quietly and changing kids' lives one at a time, or whether they have a bigger platform, whatever that platform might be. That's really what I get the joy from. And I get the joy from knowing that they're happy in what they're doing and that they've chosen fields that make them happy, and they're changing the world in their own way.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good perspective, because as going into motherhood, I wouldn't want to be focused too much on my children's success. I want to be focused on them being the best people they can be.
Right. And especially fame. I mean, it doesn't matter. Fame really, I don't even think of my kids as famous. And they get stopped, both of them get stopped when we go places. And it doesn't, it's like I just stand aside and it's fine, but it's not something that feels like out of the ordinary. It's just what they happen to do today.
Something you would change about the way you mothered your kids when they were growing up, but the thing you would absolutely not change about the way you mothered your kids.
Something I would change is that I could be very militaristic at times. Like the house has to be clean and everything has to be in its place, and I had to make sure that dinner was made by a certain time. I wish I had been more like, let's go outside and have a picnic. And it's okay if the house is messy right now. We'll figure that out later. I missed. I also have to admit that I was working and I was running a television production company, and there were plenty of school events that my husband went to, school plays or performances. And I'm not sure the kids really cared which parent was there, but in looking back, I wish I had said to my boss, you know what, I need to duck out for an hour and a half or two because this is important to me. Mm-hmm. So I would change that. What I absolutely wouldn't change, I wouldn't change that the emphasis that we put on faith.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
On community and on being together as a family. We went to somebody's house one time, and they were talking about how each of their children had their own room, and each of their children had their own TV and computer. And they would come home, and they would all go to their respective caves. And I thought, that's terrible. We're family, and we all need to be together. We had one TV set, which was fine, and we would negotiate what would be on the TV set, and it was a process, and it was fine, and it was good. So I think as a family, we need to live as families and not as individuals that happen to be in the same general vicinity.
Yeah, I would say that, I as a kid, I don't think I noticed too much when you weren't able to come to things. I remember the things you came to. Mm-hmm. But I would imagine as a mom, I'll feel similarly. Yeah. That it's like almost for me more than it is for the kids. Like, I want to be there. I want to see what you're doing.
Right.
And then as far as the things that you wouldn't change, I agree. I mean, I know that I want to do the same thing in our house. I don't want any of our kids having a TV in their room. The TV was something we had to negotiate. Okay, what are we all going to watch together? It wasn't something like, oh, well, I want to watch this and you want to watch that, so like, see you later. It was, okay, well, I guess we're all going to watch this show, even though really only one of us wants to watch it this much.
Right.
And it was nice. It ended up being just a way for us to share time together in a really obviously casual way, because TV is not something that you can like talk through. But I don't know if you guys remember this. I was thinking about how this is so irrelevant to kids nowadays, where when we were growing up, we had cable, so you didn't not have commercials. You had commercials. So it was like somebody would run to the bathroom and then everyone else would be like, oh, it's coming back on, hurry up. And you couldn't pause it. And it's just such a funny thing that how much things have changed.
Technology is completely different.
I know. What advice would you give to a young, inexperienced father about raising children?
I would give the same advice to both.
Okay.
Mothers and fathers, that it's okay not to know everything.
Yeah.
It's okay to call mom and dad and say, hey, this happened. Do you have any suggestions? Or siblings who happen to have kids or friends. And it's okay to make mistakes. And to say to your kids as they get older, I made a mistake. I reacted badly and I shouldn't have done that. It's just understand you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to be a perfect parent. You're not going to have a perfect kid. And you're going to learn how to do this together.
Right.
No matter how many books you read, no matter how many videos you watch, it's a learning process. And we learn a lot from our kids. And I think that I feel bad for people who don't have kids, because there's a lot of learning they miss out on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's like a a pressure to know everything or that you're not going to make a mistake. But no matter what you do, you're going to make a mistake. Even if you're the best parent in the world, you're going to make mistakes.
Your kid's going to cry. Nobody gets through this life without a skinned knee.
Right.
I mean, and hurt feelings. Mm-hmm. How to be more feminine, question mark. I saw that one.
Oh, you saw that one? Yeah.
Yeah.
How to be more feminine.
I have to look at my daughter. I learned how to be more feminine from Abby. That's the truth. I kind of grew up in an era where why would I need to be feminine? That's kind of silly. Mm-hmm. And now that I see Abby embrace her femininity more, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of nice. I like it.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny is like you never put on makeup growing up.
No,
And
even to work, I would put on makeup in the car.
Right. And
So if I had 2 minutes, I would wear 2 minutes of makeup. If I had 10 minutes, I wear 10 minutes of makeup.
right, exactly. And I liked it. I liked makeup. I used to wear heels all the time. Don't do it as much anymore, but when I was younger, I really liked it. It was something I think I naturally gravitated toward. It wasn't something that was like taught to me so much. It's just, you know how some people have
You
different...
certainly didn't learn it from me. So there you go.
But it's been a fun thing for me to embrace my femininity and see you liking it too. I like the idea of sharing this stuff with my family, my mom, and then just other women generally. I think that femininity is something that's really like the external parts of it, because there's obviously even more internal parts of it.
Sure.
The external parts of it are just really fun. How to get kids involved with religion and God. My eldest is 2. We just sing and read now.
I think that the way we got our children involved with religion and God is that we had the Sabbath. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, of course, every day we would, say a prayer before we eat. And it was just part of our everyday life to do that. And also our children went to Hebrew day school, so they learned Hebrew and they learned about the Torah at school. But in terms of our home, there was many things we did around the house every day. As I said, saying prayers before we ate, saying prayers before the kids went to sleep. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's the Sabbath. And that's really big because it was a day that the kids knew we wouldn't be going to work, we wouldn't be using any technology, we wouldn't be driving anywhere, and it was just a day for religion. We would go to synagogue, we would sing songs, we would have company over, we would go to people's homes, and
kosher. I will say
that's
kosher.
True. Kosher is
something.
big thing.
Yeah, something. Do you mind if I
No, go
jump
ahead.
in? One of the things I think that makes Orthodox Judaism nice is that it's part of your everyday practice. You don't have to be talking about Bible stories. You don't have to be talking about faith. Everything you do is directed by the laws that you keep. So whatever you eat, whatever you wear, the clothes you choose to wear, wherever, like which days you can drive, which days you can't, the Jewish holidays, so much of your day is determined by your faith. And so then, which this is actually kind of part of the religion, you end up asking all these questions about why you do this, which leads you into a discussion of the Bible and of faith.
And what I was going to say about the Sabbath, and anybody can do this, when you have friends over and you're a Christian, we would talk, the adults would talk about the Bible and the Torah around the table, around the Sabbath table, and the kids would listen and ask questions. So, and sometimes they would prefer to stay inside and do that rather than go outside and play with the other kids, because the discussions were very high level and interesting to them. So I would say that if you're Christian and you have people over, talk about the Bible, talk about those kind of philosophical things in front of the kids, involve them if you can, and make them feel like, oh, this is not just something out of the ordinary, this is something that we do ordinarily many days, and make it something, and it becomes something they're very comfortable with.
Yeah, I think that's a very good word to use, is that your comfort level with religion and faith is just really high when it's something that you're constantly surrounded with. So that's how I felt like just Judaism and traditional values, together became a big part of my worldview. The primary part of my worldview was just that I was immersed in it.
Right.
Favorite biblical or religious story?
Yeah. I have always been taken with the story of Joseph and his brothers.
I don't think I knew that.
Just the whole story of what his brothers did to him, selling him into slavery, him going to Egypt, becoming the second to the Pharaoh, and him having to forgive his brothers for what they did, his brothers having to repent for what they did. It's so many issues, so many aspects to that story, and to family, and how families have to do those things every day with each other. It's
like a real exploration of human nature.
Yeah.
The Bible is such an interesting thing because it's struggles that we have as people every day now, and you're seeing it in something that is so archetypal and also so like foundational to our faith. You think, oh, it must be so high level, the Bible must be so high level, but really it's dealing with the things that we deal with as people every single day. Yeah, I like that story too.
Do you have a favorite story?
Off the top of my head, that's really hard. I'm trying to think. The story of Rachel, the story of Rachel, I mean, that's tragic, but the story of like Rachel and Leah and the sisters, again, it's all of these things dealing with human nature, just the jealousy, the pining for children that Leah has, and that Rachel has, and that Leah doesn't ever have to deal with, but she doesn't have her husband's love in the way that Rachel does.
I mean, even the way Leah named her children. The first son was, each son was, maybe my husband will love me now.
Right.
My husband will love me now because I gave him a son.
Right.
It's pretty tragic.
It is. And that's one of the things I absolutely love about reading the Torah, is that you can really take lessons for your own life just by reading about these people who were human. They were not supernatural. No. And they made mistakes. That's another thing I love about the Torah, is that nobody's perfect. No one's a saint. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has issues, and that God made us that way, because if we were perfect, why would we need him?
For sure.
Why did you decide to name your children Abby and Ben?
Well, Benjamin was named after his grandparents.
Right.
After his grandfathers.
Yeah.
My husband's mother's father was named Ben, and his father's father was named Aaron. Aaron Bear.
Yeah, I remember that.
So Abigail was, in my heart, actually named after Abigail Adams.
I think I knew that. I think maybe I knew that. I mean, we don't talk about it as much.
I love the name, but she was such a strong character in history, and she had to maintain the farm, and she was just such a strong character, and the love between she and her husband was so strong. I just thought there was a strength to her and the name.
Yeah,
that I loved.
Yeah, I know Dad chose the name because of the Hebrew meaning of it, right?
Yes.
Which is Avigail, which means my father's joy.
Yes.
Also, there's an Abigail in the Torah, well, in the Navi, in the prophets, who's a very strong woman. I love my name. I'm very happy with my name.
That's nice.
People have been asking just all over, best parenting advice for me, because I'm becoming a new parent.
Well, I think we already got into this.
Yeah,
before.
The idea of like, just new parenting.
Yeah, just know that you're not going to be perfect. That it's really okay to not know everything before you embark on this journey. Mm-hmm. And it really is a journey.
Yeah. That's why I'm lucky to have you, and I'm lucky to have so many. I'm lucky to be the youngest. I have so many examples of good parenting and people I can go to ask questions, and it's nice. I don't feel like I have to learn everything on the fly. I can ask people for help.
Yeah, for sure.
Did Abby ever get in trouble growing up?
Abigail didn't really get in any kind of serious trouble. But we used to call her Mussolini in a skirt. She was the youngest. And she wanted things her way. And so even when she was really tiny, it's like, I'm going to get this. I'm going to get it. And if you say no, I'm still going to get it. And she did. So,
well, I know the example of me in the diapers might be like a good depiction of that.
Yeah, I mean, she decided that she was just going to take off her diaper. And so we used tape, and then we used duct tape, and then we used anything we could to keep her diapers on, and she still took it off. So that's who Abby was. Just a very strong character, and she always knew what she wanted.
It's so funny to me because I don't think of myself that way now. But I guess when I put my mind to something, I really try to accomplish it. So it's not at the cost of anyone else. Yes. But it is just
there are certain things that each of us are born with that stay with us for our lives. So that strength that you have to decide what your goal is and to go after that goal and achieve that goal, it was there as a little girl, and it's there now.
Tell us a favorite memory you have of Abby as a child.
Abby was always very loving to us and to the people around her. She would constantly write notes saying, "You're such wonderful parents, and I really appreciate all you do for me." And she really made it clear that it wasn't enough just to sit down with her for a minute. She really wanted quality time, and she expressed that she wanted more quality time. So we would go on one Mother's Day. We took a bike ride, and we went to she loved looking at houses and how they were decorated, and we went to some open houses. We would park our bike and go into open houses and see what they look like. And then at the end of that, she made a little scrapbook of our day riding around the neighborhood, going to open houses. So she was always very creative, but the nice memory I have of Abby. And when we moved, we were going through some memorabilia, and there were notes and notes and notes of Mommy and Dad just expressing love for us, for our family, and it was very nice.
Yeah, I don't know why. I always try and I'm somebody who want to understand why I did things. But I guess there's just things that you do because you want to, or it's an innate quality.
Right, it's an innate quality.
I don't know that there was a reason why that was something I always felt like I had to do. I just liked doing it. It made me happy to give that to you, and I knew you appreciated it.
Yeah, we really did.
I remember making that cardboard book for you that I wrote maybe for your birthday or for Mother's Day or something.
Yeah, you really always took the time. Very good gift giver. People in our family will still call Abby and say, "Abby, it's so-and-so's birthday. What do you think I should get him?" And she will know, because when people express to her that, "Oh, I want this or that," she'll actually write it down. And when it comes time to give gifts, she'll remember it and tell people.
Yeah, well, I like the hard thing is you get older, people can buy things for themselves.
I know,
so it's a little bit harder. But I think maybe that was also part of it, was that I couldn't buy anything for you guys. It was your money. Right. I was a kid, and so the best thing I could do for you guys was show love through things that I could make for you, because I didn't have to. That.
But the other thing you did was, for many birthdays, for the first several birthdays, 5, 6 birthdays, we'd get Abigail a gift, and it was to be a surprise. And finally she came to us and said, I don't really love what you've been getting. It was really kind of you, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to tell you what I want, and I'm going to pick up the exact thing, and you're going to wrap it up, and I'm going to pretend that I'm surprised, and then I'll know that I really love what you're going to get me. That's a great solution. So that's what we did.
And then I think as we got older, it started to be like, oh, we'll go shopping together for it.
Yeah.
So it's like something the experience is as much a part of it as the actual gift.
Yeah.
This one's for me, and it says, what is something that your mom did with you that you want to do with your son? The thing that keeps popping into my head is that how much I would look forward to plane rides.
Oh, yeah?
Because remember, there were 6 people in our family, and so we would all have to pair off or be in an aisle of 3. But generally, it was harder to get an aisle of 3 than just 2 together. And I would always ask to sit next to you, and I would always buy American Girl books. And you and I would do crossword puzzles and the games inside. And so I would buy, before we flew, do you remember this? I would always go to the American Girl store and pick up a new book, because I always wanted to do it with you.
Yeah, we were commenting the other day that now when people go on planes, they get their kids a headset and videos and an iPad, and the kids just watch the whole time. And we didn't have that.
Right.
And it was actually wonderful.
Yeah. And it was like, I knew you couldn't be on the phone. I knew you couldn't do work. So I was so excited because I was like, maybe it's a 6-hour flight, maybe it's a 3-hour flight, but I get to spend this time with my mom, just like playing games. We're going to bring a deck of cards and we're going to play a game together. Yeah. And so that kind of directed quality time where I knew you enjoyed it as much as I did, made me feel really special. And I want to do that with our kids.
Yeah. The big suggestion I have, it's hard to do, but have, if you have more than one child, make sure that you get one-on-one time with a child, but away from the house. Like, say, we're going out for coffee. We're going out. One of the things I remember is when Dad was driving back with the other kids from Chicago.
Yeah.
And you and I were home alone.
Yeah.
And I said, Abby, you want to go out to dinner? Just the two of us. And she looked at me and said, just the two of us are going to go out to dinner? And I said, yeah. And those are the things you remember, and those are the things the kids would remember. Going out to Dunkin' Donuts just for, on a Sunday morning, just the two of you, going to a bookstore, and try to have that special time with each kid alone. And try to do it, once every few weeks. They will remember, and so will you.
Yeah. And that's something I want to do because I know how important it is to me that our children feel super close to each other and feel like the family dynamic. But I also want to make sure that really for me, it's about that directed time. I think because of all this technology, I think a lot of kids don't feel like their parents enjoy being with them because they're constantly distracted by the phone or by the computer. Or, well, if we're going to be alone for 3 hours, you might as well go on your iPad and I'll do something else.
Yeah.
And I always felt like you were so excited to spend time with me. You were so excited to be with me for that amount of time, however long it was.
Yeah.
And that was really, it was bolstering. It made me feel like, okay, I'm a good person because my mom likes me.
Yeah. Well, somebody asked what I regretted, so I just thought of something else I regretted.
Okay.
Dad would sit and watch TV with you guys. He'd actually watch the show and pay attention while you were paying attention. And I was like, they're just watching TV, so I'm going to clean the house. I'm going to do this. I could never understand that was important. That was really time you were spending together.
Yeah.
And that you really did care that Dad was sitting next to you watching the same show. And maybe you would discuss it and maybe you wouldn't, but that was together time.
Yes. Well, something I've learned about TV is that, we all think of TV as like, oh, it's just a passive thing. You're not really enjoying anyone's company. How could you be? You're watching something and just both staring at a screen. And that can be true if you're doing it wrong or if you're doing it way too long. But there's a reason that we as people enjoy television as a group as opposed to sitting in a room reading different books. We are sharing something when you watch something together. You can't read, unless you're listening to an audiobook, you can't read a book together. You're alone together in the same room. Whereas when you're watching something, you're together.
Yeah.
And that's a nice feeling and something that I have really learned in my relationship with Jacob because we love watching things together. Also because we discuss it at length. Yeah. So, okay, I think we got time for one more question, even though there are so many more. So let's choose a really good one. What advice do you have for younger women just entering adulthood?
I think Abby gives the best advice, and that is to stay true to your values. Stay true to the things that really are going to be the most important things in your life. They always said, when you die, what's written on your tombstone? That you made a lot of money, that you went to that meeting, that you went to, a great college, or that you were a good mother and a good sister and a good daughter. So no matter what you do, and you can achieve a lot in this life, you can achieve whatever you put your mind to, you really can, that you always keep in perspective what is ultimately the most important thing in your life. And that is going to be your family,
Your faith,
your community. And all those other things you can do too. But just remember which comes first and which is most important. And make sure that your husband knows those things too.
Yeah, I think, the first thing that popped into my head is something that off the bat could sound like woke. And I want to flip it on its head, which is when you're a young woman entering adulthood, I think that the thing you have to keep in mind is to be brave. And I think a lot of the time people think bravery is leaving everything behind that you grew up with and entering this new arena of the world and you have to start from scratch. My take on being brave is being able to face everything that you are going to be hammered with that tells you that everything that you know is wrong and staying true to what you know is the truth. I think that's such a hard thing to do. And you're going to meet every girl you meet at, college is going to be telling you that you need to follow a female empowerment narrative that's really going to lead you down a path of sadness. And the brave thing is to stay true to your values, stay true to what you've grown up with, stay true to the things you know are actually going to be good for you. And that also means it takes effort, because it takes effort for you to be faced with things that you've never heard before maybe, and say, okay, well, I'm hearing stuff that goes against what I grew up with. Well, I could just take it at face value because all of my friends are, or I have to go out of my way to search for an answer that really makes sense, going back to what I did, what I do know are these tried and true practices that lead to fulfillment and meaning.
Yeah. Well, and it's easier for me now that I'm older. I can't, because I did have a career outside the house.
Yeah.
I ran companies and I did things that I'm proud of. Not as proud of raising a family, but I am proud of those things. But I can't tell you the number of women who have come to me over the years and said, I didn't put my family first. And I wasn't able to have children because I waited too long, and things were so important. The things I thought were so important, I missed my window, or the things that were so important. Now I'm divorced and I'm a single mom. Maybe if I had done some things differently, that wouldn't have happened. So I, have the ability to look back at all these women who put other things first and are not regretting it. You can't see that from where you sit, but I can from experience. So be true, stay true, and make sure that you don't lose sight of what is really going to bring you happiness in your life and what is really important. And that doesn't mean you have to give up other things. It just means that you have to have a hierarchy of things.
Yeah. Well, and that's from a woman who was the primary breadwinner for our family. That's from the woman who worked. So keep that in mind. Well, that was awesome. Thank you so much for answering all these questions. Thank you guys for submitting your questions. This is like a really good advice video, so reference it.
And pretty soon I'm going to get to hold a new little baby Roth.
Yeah, little baby boy Roth is going to be joining us not too far away. So
yeah, very excited.
He's been moving like crazy, so he's been enjoying sitting here and listening. So.
Listening to Nana.
So thank you guys so much for watching. If you aren't already subscribed to my channel, make sure to subscribe now and hit that notification bell. If you're not subscribed to my Substack newsletter, which I should have mentioned all the way back at the beginning, make sure to head over to classicallyabby.substack.com, where you can get access to a ton of exclusive content. And if you're not following me on social media, it's at classicallyabby, absolutely everywhere. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!